I want to take this moment to bring in John Brennan, the former director of the CIA and now an MSNBC national security and intelligence analyst. I'd like to bring Director Brennan into the conversation. And, sir, thank you so much for joining us. I would like to know what it is like for someone who is the former director of the CIA to see these photos of these sensitive documents stored in showers, in bathrooms, splayed out on the floor. What is your reaction to that?
I was looking at those photos and then reading through the indictment. I shuddered throughout, especially when I saw the classification markings on those 31 documents that were listed there, and the very careless and slipshod way that these documents were left unsecured for so long, that contain some of the most highly sensitive intelligence that this country has to protect our national security. I will point out that the indictment listed 31 documents, but according to the indictment, I think it's paragraph 8, subsection C, it says that in August of last year, pursuant to the subpoena, there were over 100 documents that were seized. So this is just a subset of documents that are listed actually in that indictment. I think it's because it's the great sensitivity of the information. You can see that it's a very short synopsis of what it contains because the contents of them themselves are so revealing. Again, at the top secret level, the highest classification, the highest code words and handling procedures in the U.S. government. That's what these documents involve.
I have a follow-up to that, which is there's some talk about the sensitivity of some of these documents is so extraordinary. Is it your sense that the most sensitive documents aren't even accounted for in this indictment because it would be hard to litigate them?
Well, not just, and I would defer to Andrew on that matter as far as hard to litigate them. It's going to be very hard to present them. And as I think has been talked about before, the CIPA, the Classified Information Procedures Act, provides the mechanisms that some of this very highly sensitive information can be shared in chambers with the judge, with the court, with the defense attorneys. But I'm sure that the intelligence community is trying to keep as much of that information out of even those areas because of the high sensitivity of it. But what I think the intelligence community is going to do is to try to be as forthcoming as possible. They're not going to declassify this material because that just undercuts the argument about this whole sensitivity of this information and how much damage would be done if it's exposed and because it was unsecure. So I do think that Jack Smith and his team are going to be working with the court to determine the exact procedures that are going to be in place, that they're going to be able to either provide classified summaries or have the heads of the intelligence community attest to the contents of them and maybe show some of them in chambers. But I'm sure that they're keeping back a lot of this information because it's just so revealing, source revealing, sensitive technical collection systems, human networks, and other types of things that it really would be devastating, which is one of the reasons I'm so concerned that this information was left there for so long. I'm sure Mar-a-Lago was on the target list for a lot of foreign intelligence services that could have easily gotten in there by, masking themselves as staff or visitors or members of the club. And foreign intelligence services, they go in there, they're not going to steal the documents, they're going to take photos of it and try to make sure that they're able to gather up as much as possible, but without leaving any fingerprints of what might have been compromised.
John, this is Chris Hayes. I actually wanted to ask you about that. Let me just follow up. I mean, there was reporting about Mar-a-Lago as a counterintelligence concern from very early on, when he was the president of the United States. You've worked a career in intelligence. Can you think of any analog or precedent for a place like Mar-a-Lago, this strange mix of public, private, porous location with holding top secrets?
None whatsoever. I mean, the U.S. government has a lot of facilities throughout the United States. And a lot of those facilities, in fact, contain classified information, top secret information. But these are hardened facilities. They have safes, they have rooms with alarms, they frequently have guards. They will be protected because of the nature of that information. But to leave it just out like that in a private club and just strewn about in different rooms, ballrooms and bathrooms or whatever, that could be accessed easily by just any normal person. But sophisticated intelligence services from overseas, they have amazing amount of ways that they can find a way to get access to this facility and to glean information from it. So that's why it's going to be so hard for the intelligence community to determine what actually has been compromised and which of those technical collection systems might need to be turned off or suspended for a while, or which human sources need to be exfiltrated in order to protect their lives. Because, again, these things are just so sensitive that takes billions of dollars, many years, and some real courage and bravery on the part of foreign nationals who work for us, as well as CIA officers who go out and recruit these individuals.
Director, one more question on that front. I mean, Republicans in Congress have been sort of hiding behind the fact that the ODNI assessment, the intelligence community assessment regarding the implications, the fallout from the retention of these documents, that assessment is not complete. And they're saying we don't know yet what damage, if any, has been done to national security. You're suggesting that assessment is quite complicated. Is your outside guess that this is going to take quite some time longer? I know that it's hard to sort of predict, but give us a sense of how long that can be a line of argument from opponents of this indictment.
Quite frankly, I don't think the intelligence community will ever be able to determine conclusively what might have been compromised, because there wasn't 24/7 video coverage of all these areas where the documents were held. And so you don't know what might have happened during this period of time that this was accessed. So the intelligence community is going to have to make some judgments about whether or not there are any indications that sources have been compromised, or technical collection systems are now known to foreign adversaries. So they're going to have to do their best that they can, but it's going to be over the course of, I think, many years to determine whether or not, in fact, whether the documents that were down there were, in fact, compromised to the detriment of our sources and our national security.
Former director of the CIA, John Brennan, with some invaluable analysis of what is happening here. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.